Alright, the Palette VL64 has the same arrangement of buttons more or less as the whole palette range. There are a couple of little differences, but we might as well just run through a couple of the different buttons that are used for various different things. So, for example, copy. Copy here, if I hit this button and you have a bit of a look at the screen, you'll see that what's appeared on the screen is a dialog box asking us, well, exactly what do you want to copy? Now, for example, if I take fixture number 104 and hit copy, what it's done is it's put fixture 104 in the source and fixture 104 in the destination, and I could copy fixture 104, for example, to 103. So all I've done was type 104, copy 103, enter, and it's copied all of the parameters from one to the other. Okay? Same thing same kind of thing with move. So, for example, when you bring up the move display, you get the same kind of thing. And move is very much something that you'd probably be more likely to use on a look or a queue. So you might move a queue from one position to another, or from one, copy it from one place to another. So in the case of looks, we can copy a particular look number from one look page to another look page, and so on. So move and copy are very related and do the same kind of thing. Just next to them on the console here, we've got delete. Now, the delete key, well, it does exactly what you might think it does. So we could, for example, create a queue. So we could record queue 23, enter, and then delete Q23, and on the screen you see all I've done is type delete 23. On the screen you can see it says delete Q23. It's going to ask me, are you sure? And absolutely yes, because 23 was nothing. If you wanted to delete a look, then it's just one extra keystroke on the hardware. So we'll record one first. So we'll record look 48, enter, and we can delete look 48, enter. Are you sure? The screen's asking me now, delete look 48, are you sure? Yes, I want it to go away, please. The view command, when I hit view, it's going to say, well, what do you want to view? We can view look 11 and see what happens when we view look 11. Now, on the screen, what's popped up here is the generic view dialog box, and this actually gives you the ability to look at anything that you've recorded or any parameters or properties. It effectively opens the properties box of everything. So you, for example, could look at the properties of a fixture. Okay, so if I open fixture 2's properties, you'll see, oh look, there's a whole bunch of label options that I can pop in there. Oh, that's fabulous. Okay, no worries. The label options for fixtures, if we have a look at that just briefly, if I select a whole bunch of fixtures, I can also get into the properties by right-clicking on them once I've selected them. And I can change the fixture title. I could put a little bit of text up the top here. It might say front of house or FOH. And it puts a little FOH next to the number up the top here. I'd be a little bit careful about using this because it does tend to clutter up the screen, but you may find it useful for various different things. For example, I'll just get rid of front of house there on all of those. Now, number 2 here. Let's say number 2 was a Hazer machine. All right. Now, if I actually change the center label and call it HZR, what will happen is 2 will disappear and HZR will appear instead. And so what it allows you to do then is actually effectively go, oh, there's the Hazer, I'll just whack him to full. Now, it's still actually selected on the command line by going to full. It's still referred to as 2. All right. I can't actually type on my keyboard here HZR and then go full. it just doesn't work. Strange things happen. All right, so just one to be wary of. But what you could do, if, for example, you wanted to just highlight some numbers just so that you knew that they were different, I can actually give it a fixture label of its own number and change its colour. All right, so now it's actually 2 but in green. All right, likewise I can make this one fixture title 3 but in magenta. Okay, gives you the ability to actually group different fixtures in different ways and be able to sort of grab them quickly and easily. So this view button here, or in fact if we'll just go shift view, it'll pop that dialog box straight up, can be very, very useful. That was the fixture properties. You can go into queue list properties. We've talked a little bit about what's in here before. And, you know, these are things that you might want to play with. There's some new features in here, for example, queue list synchronization, which looks at making multiple consoles talk to each other. There's in queue properties, you can bring up the queue properties of any particular queue. And this is an extended window of the same window that you looked at when I brought up here in the action column. When you double click on a window there, this is the same information, but there's more stuff there. So if I actually go shift view Q13, you can see all of the time stuff, which is actually on the display here, is listed here as separate things that I can dive into and change. And I can actually change profiles. I can change all sorts of dimming profiles about various different things. So there's lots of bits and pieces in there that are worth a bit of a play with and have a look at. I can change the properties of a look page. For example, subpage 1 here, I can give it a new name. I can change what it's recording. At the moment, subpage 1 captures everything, but you know what? I might want it to only capture intensity information. So there it is. So if I select none and hit S4, now it's only capturing intensity information. I won't actually do that. I'll just cancel out of that one. And finally, looks themselves. If I actually bring up the properties of a look, then here are all the bits and pieces that I can change about a specific look. So the view button itself on the hardware here can actually be quite useful if you understand how to use it and what it can grab for you. The other buttons that fall underneath that little group of 6 there are the buttons that I've been hitting for most of the session today, which have record and undo, update and look, time, queue, go to, the group key, and finally shift and alt. And so these are keys that you will start to use quite a bit. Other keys around here that we haven't really touched on. One is RemDim. RemDim is a useful little function, and it allows you to select a light and hit RemDim, and it takes out everything except that light so that you can just see exactly what that's doing. You'll use that quite a bit when you're focusing. We've talked a little bit about load. So load allows you to, if you, I'll actually do it via the dialog box, might be a little bit easier to see. So I'm going to go shift load and bring that up onto the screen. And you can see on the screen there, I can load a queue, I can load a look, and what loading does is it loads it into the programmer. So if I go load queue 13, enter, it loads into the programmer everything about Q13 so that I can then record that or manipulate that or do whatever it is I want to do with that. I might want to load it so that I can record it into a palette, those kinds of things. Up-down percentage is kind of interesting. So this is directly below the load button here, and I've got an up-down percentage control. And what that's doing is that's moving the selected item on the screen. You'll see that I've got channel 25 selected, and it's just moving it up and down by 5 percentage points, because that's one of the things I set early on in the setup process. All right, so those are the primary bits and pieces of the actual hardware buttons. There's a whole bunch of software stuff that I haven't really touched on that, you know, it is quite useful. So for example, if I'll just run up a queue that has a whole bunch of stuff in it. Alright, so there we go. Here's a queue on the stage with a whole bunch of stuff on it that is particularly 62 through 72. And so all of these lights here. Alright, so what I can do is I can select everything. Alright, so select S12 and all levels above 0. So, okay, we've grabbed everything that's above 0. What do I want to do with it? On the soft keys, you'll see a thing that says at prop. That means at proportion. So all of those at, I don't know, 80% of their current value. So if the director liked the look but wanted the whole thing just to fade down a little bit, you can use at proportional. Okay, other things that happen to be in that particular area, you can force things into delta, so that if you need to grab things and record them, you can force it to have a delta, or you can force it to remove a delta. If I hold the shift key down, you'll see that on the screen there it now says remove delta instead of force delta on M6, if you can actually read that, but you can probably see it changing at least, if nothing else, while I toggle the shift key. There's knockout there, which you might recall I played with knockout a little bit before, and the way I did it was to actually, for example, in the current case that we've got at the moment, if I go at enter, it does the same thing. It actually knocks it out of the queue, and so the levels that were previously running in the queue list will flow through that position. Don't actually want to do that. So there you go.